take your break.
Yeah, yeah, we have to grab coffee or something.
All right. So you ready for the interview?
I'm ready. It's your world. Let's do it.
So I was reading through the press notes here, and by the way, I'm Philippe from Taji Mag. Thank you for joining us, and we loved your film Opus, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So I was reading through the press notes, and you talked about how an incident with a Michael Jackson fan kind of sparked the idea. Can you go into a little bit more detail of how that was the start of Opus?
Yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily like the start, but it felt like eh, such a great encapsulation of the like imminent danger. Obviously, Opus is a bigger cautionary tale, and it's not just about entertainment, but about tribalism as it pertains to kind of all walks of life and politics and culture and society in general. But the story with MJ, he's in this record store, and all of these kids are like pressed against the glass, and this woman gets pressed through the glass, and she's cut really badly, and she's bleeding, and she's bleeding, and um, Michael recalls how kind of no one helped her. And you could tell because he probably was young and, he didn't live a normal life at all. So he probably doesn't remember what it's like to not be famous, to not have young people like chasing him. But the question I thought it was interesting that he was insightful enough to ask the question, which is, like basically what his question is, to see me, why is that so great, so special that a bleeding human would go unnoticed? And I just felt like an insightful, thoughtful, uh, you know, unanswered question from him, and feels like it represents the thesis of the film, or at least one of the things we explore.
Yeah, and I'm gonna tell you right now, the way I described it, my first reaction was it's like Willy Wonka's Dark Side meets the Rocky Horror Picture Show with a
Uh,
David Bowie,
yeah,
Jackson, Prince-esque host
love that.
looking
Love,
for his
love that. Love your brain. Would tattoo that on my forearm if I had tattoos. That'd
um
be sick.
so for those that haven't seen it, like how would you kind of describe the film to them?
I would describe the film as the most fun you'll have in a theater in a while. It's a super fun film. Um, a really fun ride. In a ride of like a lot of the senses,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah,
thoughtful, challenging, but fun.
yeah. And I want to get to the actors like Ayo and John Malkovich. Let's start with
Ayo,
sorry, Ayo, sorry.
that's okay.
Ayo. So let's get to Ayo. How was it like directing Ayo and John in this film?
Man, I'm 36, and collaborating with those two has been the highlight of my 36 years so far. Like the biggest honor creatively, for sure. Um, they're great, and they are very different, but they have a standard of quality, and they hold themselves to a certain standard that elevates everything around them. Like one thing about Io that I think is so special is Io's first take is always good. Io doesn't need to find shit. She's in it. She steps on set. She's ready to score 40 and 10. Like she's there. She's always ready. And that is so valuable, especially when you're working on a limited budget and limited time, and we only had 19 days to make this film. So you don't get you don't get such an ambitious swing if Io can't carry the movie in very, very limited takes. And then John is one of the greats for a reason. His instincts, his ideas, his curiosities, they're singular. And I had so much fun watching him knock it out the park, watching him take things in a direction that was like past my wildest dreams, and that's just so much fun and addictive. It's like addictive to work with actors like John Malkovich.
Yeah. I want to go back to Ayo because you have a your background in writing and journalism for GQ, and of
Hmm.
course the lead character, she's a journalist. Is
Yeah.
there, like feedback that you gave her or memories that you gave her to go off of to capture the essence of this character?
You know, yeah, yeah, but I think so much of like I chose to make the surrounding journalists, the paparazzi photographer, etc. I chose to make them tropey, because it's not their story. But I fought to make Ayo's character as fleshed out and as round as possible because it that's what I wanted to see. That's I wanted to see a smart, strong black woman who was young in her career, flawed in her outlook on some things because she's so young, but no doubt that she would figure it out. And that reminded me of so many of the black women in my life, so many of the black women that I went to school with. I graduated from Morehouse, and Ariel, the character, went to Spelman. And so I think that to answer your question, if you focus so much on the journalists talk like this and journalists act like this and a journalist wouldn't say this, then that's if you're pushing somebody to like fit the idea of the traditional thing. And I did that with everyone else so that Ariel and Io could cook in a different way. And I I think so much of filmmaking is instinctual. But when I look at that script, when I look at the moments, this film, and I watch it to this day, one of the things that I think is so successful about it is Ayo's character, and I think the reason that is, in addition to her, Ayo's just being such an incredible talent, it's because she has the space and the room to be great. It's like an isolation play in basketball. Like it was more important to me that Io score 50 points than the Ariel score 50 points than it was for her to score 30 and everyone else score 30. That was a bigger win to me. And yeah, so I think you got to be careful. You can't make her seem like quote unquote journalist, so to speak.
I got you. And speaking of tropes, you kind of took her away from the horror tropes of her falling. Like you actually
Yeah,
had her make decisions that you and I or anybody else would make, so we're not yelling at the screen like, "Why did you do that?"
yeah, yeah.
What was your intent about that?
Man, when you say that, like it makes me so happy. It makes me feel like all of the fighting and effort to make her that like was worth it. I don't know. It's just what I wanted to see. I think, you obviously you're a film lover. We love movies. We see so many movies. That just felt original to me. It felt more original for her not to see that. And it also felt like a really cool opportunity to do that with a black woman. It felt like a cool opportunity to do that in a film that like tries to tackle some really big ideas, but then also is got body horror elements and some slasher elements, and it's like a fun movie. It's not like homework or some heady thing, but like a fun ride. But she doesn't do something stupid in the fun ride. That felt like a worthwhile challenge?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I was just like, yeah, I would do every single one of that. I wouldn't leave. I'd be questioning every,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not just like, oh, what is this? um,
It's something I call the magic test.
mhm.
And in my mind, if you were screening this at a Magic Johnson theater back when they had Magic Johnson theaters, I've only seen one movie at a Magic Johnson theater, but we yelled at the screen the whole time. And so part of me is like, the test is, would people yell less? What gets them to not be like, don't go in, why would you do that? Like, get them to yell less. Um, and I think I love where we landed, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So I want to get to the fun character, Moretti.
Yeah.
He's like an amalgamation of Prince, of John Morrison, Freddie Mercury. Like,
If you say so.
like I was gonna say, like, what did you think? Like, how did you come up with this unique,
Yeah.
beloved character? And then how did you pick John Malkovich to portray that character?
Man, I think John is one of those actors that I think he's on every director's list to do something with, you know? So picking John is one of the easiest decisions ever, because of how talented he is. In crafting already as a character, I think um, the objective was way more things not to do than things to do. I didn't want him to feel like David Bowie, one for one, or to feel like Elton John, one for one, or Prince, one for one. So it was important to us that he felt original, that he felt like he could exist, um, but wasn't Beyonce, wasn't The Weeknd, wasn't Ariana or any of the current pop stars, right? Wasn't Michael Jackson, wasn't uh, Alice Cooper, but his own thing, but what could exist in the pantheon of those people. And that's a much harder job, and a much, tougher needle to thread. And yet, when you're working with people like John Malkovich, when you're working with people like The Dream and Nile Rodgers, and so many talented crew, I just knew that even though we didn't have a ton of resources, we definitely had the talent to pull it off, you know? So again, super proud with where we landed.
Yeah. How fun was that? Because I feel like John had too much fun singing and he had too much fun dancing in this movie. And actually said it pretty good. I was like, I could tell it was done produced by Now Rodgers in the Dream, but it seemed like he
Yeah,
just embodied the whole character and had fun
he
with it.
killed it. Yeah, he accepted it as just a challenge, and I think that he does that with all of his roles, but he accepted it as such a challenge, and I was really demanding and pushed him, and I'm like, put this on, wear this, do this, and he never did anything but bring 100% uh effort and talent and fearlessness to it. And again, it really made me feel free to explore and to flesh this out as much as we literally had time to, uh, which was great. And I really hope people dig that and respond to that. I mean, I think it's the coolest thing in the world that John Malkovich has original songs with Nile Rodgers and The Dream. It's like all my favorite things in one.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. And
Yeah.
now I want to get to the compound. So it's kind of like you're going into Area 51 and you're seeing these levelists. Can you kind of explain to the audience the compound and the levelists who exist in that area?
Yeah, Moretti has a cult, which is not uncommon amongst musicians and celebrities. And every wealthy person, if you make enough money and you get famous enough, it turns into a compound. You know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of like a tongue-in-cheek winkiness about that. That's like, oh, well, of course, it's a compound. There's no version of it that's an office building. There's no version of it that is on Fifth Avenue. It's, that's just kind of the what happens, the cliche of it. But then his is so specific and so different, and the prerequisites to spend time with him are different. And so that felt super fun. And, Levelist. they are an intentional artistic community um, that I hope people have a ton of fun with. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, man. And you can I can tell you pay attention to really like the sound design because you can feel the transition
Yeah.
when they first come to the compound, the happy-go-lucky aspect of it, and then you transition into, okay, this place is kind of weird, something's awry. Like, how important was that to you to kind of nail the sound design?
Dude, I had the very, 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 very best people working on the sound on this film. Trevor and Casey, they just, man, it's like they took nothing for granted. They elevated everything that they touched. They were a joy to work with, to spend time with, but also they made things interesting that, I had taken for granted or hadn't considered. And so I give them I appreciate the compliment, but I've like endorsed that over like a check to them because they didn't take any financial limitation as an actual limitation, no time limitation. They made the film sound and therefore feel as big as possible. And it's one of my favorite aspects of the movie.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. One of my last questions is kind of a spoiler, so I'm gonna release it after the movie's released. Um, so it is mentioned to Ariel that she is mid.
Yeah.
That correlated with the levelist because I caught on to I'm like there's something with that mid than just a term.
Hmm.
Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, what do you before I don't what do you think it is?
I think that her friend was a levelist and said you're mid,
Hmm.
which meant she had to ascend with experience.
Hmm.
Experiences that she had on the compound, she was able to ascend to the next level.
Yeah.
So everything that he mentioned at the very beginning of the film, she experienced through the course of the movie to reach that next level to unlock her potential. That's
And
what I
you
thought.
and your theory is that the guy she goes on a date with, young Lizino's character, is a levelist.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah. I love this.
Because
I
if
would never I would never rob you of that theory to
huh?
confirm it or deny it.
Mhm.
I would welcome if you enjoyed the film a second watch to maybe catch things that could help inform uh, those theories or who's what or whatever. But I love that as a theory. I think that's tight.
That's cool, man. And I love the fact that you put Amber in the film. It's like
Oh, she's the best.
he tore her from the movie Prey.
Yeah,
Put her on the screen. I was like, she didn't change. Well, she changed characters, but she was still vicious.
yeah, yeah. Super. Also, Amber is one of those. I want to say this about Amber Midthunder. I know we're running late on time, but like Amber, if there was like one aspect of Opus that to me I like constantly felt like fuck I want to explore this, but there just isn't a framework. Like the frame can't handle it. Like it was Amber, and it was genuinely because I think she's so talented. I think she's such a great performer. She has such great instincts. Visually, she's stunning and cool, and has all the things. And her mother was our casting director.
Yeah.
And so Amber's like a true artist. And was like, I like this script and I want to, this. And I want to make sure, I want to find something in the future for her and I to do together because I feel like we only scratched the surface of what we could pull off together.
Okay, cool, man. Well, thank you for your time. Of course, I have a whole bunch of questions, but not enough time. So, we'll try to keep in contact, man, because I like
Yeah,
this.
I would love that. I would love that, man. It's great to meet you and keep up the great work, brother.
Thank you.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.